Hey, Ag Teacher Thoughts coming at you with another video. Today we are going to talk about seeds. So it's that time of year that we're going to start putting seeds in the ground. Now we'll talk about the actual dates in a little bit, but right now what we're going to do is we're going to look at a few seeds that you might encounter when you are out working in your garden. Now, the reason we're shooting this video is my greenhouse class is getting ready to plant the seeds, and a lot of them may not have really looked at a seed or understood how a seed is dispersed in its environment, or really how some of them look similar and how of them look different. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a couple of seed dispersal methods, and then I've got a cool seed that I'm going to show you that actually moves and buries itself. So come on in closer and let's take a look at some of these seeds. So in here, this is our setup here. We've got our soil over here where we're going to test with some plants, and then we have 3 different seeds laid out here. Now, these 3 seeds all use different methods to disperse themselves. So down here first, let me spin this one around. You can see that I have some columbine seed, and then I've got some pansy seed, and then back here, these are cutting geraniums that I actually collected myself. These are the ones that are really special. But first, let's go through and we'll talk about the columbine seed here. So columbine seeds are fairly small. They tend to be very shiny and slippery, and they are black in color. If you find some that are brown, it typically means that they are not fully developed, they're not ripe. The ripe columbine seeds will be black. They kind of look like, well, mouse leavings, basically. And maybe that's a little bit on purpose as a survival mechanism. So the way that these are actually dispersed is after this blossom dies back, the ovary of that plant closes up and it starts to ripen the seeds. And when the seeds are fully ripe, the ovary dies and it opens up, leaving little holes. And this plant tends to live in areas that are a little bit more windy. So as the wind comes through and blows, it shakes that ovary or that seed pod like a salt and pepper shaker, and it scatters the seeds around the base. The pansies here are a little bit different. With this, the pansies, when they form, it forms a hard, almost like an acorn-shaped seed pod. And as those seeds are ripening, the seed pod is green. Once the seeds ripen, that pod itself also will dry out. And it's a 3-lobed pod, so it has 3 individual lobes to it, or petals to it. And when it dries out, it starts to develop tension within the seed pod. And then once that seed pod and everything is fully dried out and fully ripened, when something bumps it, that seed pod will burst open and it'll actually throw the seed quite a distance from the pansy. The last one we're going to look here is our geranium. Now, geraniums have very interesting parts to them. There's actually 2 parts here. I don't know how much you can see this here on the camera. Get nice and close if you can. So there's 2 different things for their seed dispersal. So we have a little bit of a tuft of cellulose material here, kind of like if you imagine like a dandelion. This is to help it transport in the wind. Then also on this piece that comes out here, there are a little bit, if you look super, super close, there's little tiny hairs. I don't know if you can see it, or catches that will actually catch and snag on things. So it can be dispersed by the air and it can be dispersed by animals. Now, that's not the weird part. A lot of seeds do that. When we look at this one where that fluff has been removed, what you're going to see is on this part in between the seed head and the end of this piece here, there is actually a section of that seed that has been coiled up. Now, this section right here with the coil and this long arm is called an awn. A-W-N, awn. And as the seed dries, it forms this tight coil. But the fun part is when the seed gets moistened, this corkscrew unscrews and helps force this seed actually underground. So if this were the ground here and this curls, gets moistened, it'll actually shove that down into a layer of the dirt. And there are backwards facing hairs here on the seed that can help it, once it gets into the soil, lodge it, And then you have several different cycles of drying and moistening, and that seed will work itself further and further underground. So let's go ahead and put a few of these seeds over here on our soil. And we're going to have to get nice and close for this one too. Let's pull a few ones here. And we're going to simulate some rainfall and see what happens to these seeds. So I'll use my little bottle here to spritz them. And as they start to accept that moisture, you should start to see those seeds and those awns start to move. It worked better last time. Here, let's try it over here. Let's try it over here and see if we can get it to go with these. Those might just take some time to moisten up. The seeds have gotten pretty dry. So we'll moisten those seeds up. Let's see if we can get that underneath the soil or the water surface. Oh, here we go. Let me look at this one. So if we look at this one here, you can see very, very slowly that the angle of this is changing. And then right here, if we come in and we make a mark, you can see that that arm is moving, that awn is rolling. So it does take a little bit for it to start working. And we do another mark here, and you'll see that that awn is starting to move. Okay, so when it does that, it's going to lift this seed up in the air, and then with those hairs, if this was on soil, it would actually catch itself on the soil. So we can look back over here. So if we look right here at this seed, you can see how that one is starting to roll. So this piece is going to come up in the air here in just a moment, and these seeds are just starting to move. Okay, we can add a little bit more moisture. Another rainstorm. There we go. This one is pushing that awn down into the soil. It's lifting this up. So you can imagine as these seeds go through several cycles, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a rainstorm to cause the seeds to move. The seeds could move with a heavy dew or a light mist. See, look at this seed moving up in the air right there. So a heavy dew or a light mist can cause these seeds to move. So over the course of several days or weeks, can really get a chance to get these seeds lodged into a soil surface where they're going to have a much better chance of growing. All right, well, these seeds are going to keep moving and dancing. I will work on some other videos here so that you can see it a little bit easier. But that is what works with seeds that have awns on them. It helps them bury themselves in the soil.